friends, to episode number 31 of Wampa Radio. I am Flake. This is a podcast about Star Wars Unlimited, the card game. But so much more, so much more. The value that you get in this show, though, is unreal.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we can go over things like car repair, I suppose. We can talk about movies we've seen lately. I'm learning some basic home maintenance things now. You know, lots of helpful stuff for people from all walks of life.
Extreme couponing.
That's right. Basic addition and subtraction.
I'm in.
We usually get those right. Usually.
Mostly. Well, we did add another person to the show from last week. We were back up to full strength, Charmer. Are you?
Wow.
I'm getting there.
I'm almost full strength. I got sick on the way home. For those of you who do not know or did not see on Twitter, Flake and I were on a boat over the weekend. We were on a cruise together. It was him and I's first cruise. And on the travels back, I caught a bug, but I have mostly rebounded, and I'm feeling much better this evening. I'm hoping this means I'm through the worst of it.
Was there anyone else on the cruise with you, or was it just the two of you?
Well,
like, I know the answer to this, but the people at home might not. So
there were many people on the cruise with us. In fact, it was a city of like two or three. How many? It was like they said there was like what? How many people on that ship? Like 5,000 or 6,000?
The gentleman that we were, there was a nice gentleman who helped us each evening in our main dining area, and he said around 8,000 people on the boat, and that's why they made such a big deal, because at one point they announced that they had served 50,000 meals out over the course of the entire weekend, and that blew my mind. I'm like, wow, that's a lot for a weekend for a boat.
And the food, the food was incredible. First of all, this was my first cruise, and I was very reluctant because I've heard horror stories, or maybe just
I've never done that.
Yeah, well, it's just kind of sort of conjured up in my mind that bad things would happen. But I am 100% converted now. Cruises are freaking amazing. The food was incredible. The service, again, 50,000 meals, you'd think that you'd be waiting a lot. Never were you ever waiting. Like, you ordered your appetizer was out in 5 minutes. Your main course was out a few minutes later. Your dessert was there. You could order whatever you want. We were at a table where some of us had 2 appetizers, 2 main courses, and 2 desserts every night, because that's kind of what we're doing.
And this was a card game cruise too. We should share. This was a specific. I would have loved to go along on this. I couldn't do it. But this was a group of people gathering for the sake of playing card games, which is pretty awesome. I think that's a great idea for a cruise.
It was. We need you know what we should do for Star Wars U? A Republic cruiser.
That's a great idea.
If they weren't shutting that down, I would totally have done that.
Oh, God. The only negative aspect of the entire thing is that Charmer snores, and I shared a room with him. So I calculated about 11 and a half hours of total sleep from Friday to Monday. But it doesn't matter because you're on a freaking boat and you have no responsibilities. And it's one of those things where it's like, maybe we should do something. No, you're on a boat. There's nowhere to go but eat and relax and surf on the little surf thing. You can do rock climbing. There was dodgeball, mini golf. There were shows. Anyways.
In my defense for the snoring, mind you, I also did my best. I did my duty. I stayed up as late as possible to make sure Flake actually got sleep, and I did so by staying at the casino until they kicked me out literally every night of the cruise.
Wow. Thank you for your service. That was very valiant of you to go gamble until 3 until they kicked you out.
Poker until 3 a.m. every night of the cruise.
But we have a show to do, and we're back, and we're at full strength, and that's important. That's a good thing.
That's right. And on this episode, we'll discuss, I don't know, stuff, but we'll mostly talk about Star Wars Unlimited unless we're talking about cruises and things. But we're kind of doing a little bit of a catch-up episode, aren't we?
We are. A
little bit, yeah.
You know what we should catch up on, though?
What?
The Wampa Cave Poll of the Week.
That is, in fact, absolutely what we should be catching up on, as this week's Wampa Cave Poll of the Week was released on time. Here's how much Flake loves you, the viewer, the listener. I paid $28 for internet on Sunday so that I can put out the Wampa cave poll and check emails and like text my mom, who was like worried.
I respect that.
Yeah. So, and I put out the cave poll, and it's a doozy. And if you guys want to check it out, you can go to @Wampa Radio on Twitter, which might be changing soon. We will tell you shortly.
Wow, an announcement of an announcement.
We are good at that. But here is your cave poll of the week, ladies and gentlemen. At their peak, and I say peak, which of these force wielders would you choose to single-handedly take out a battalion of clone troopers? Now, a battalion is about 1,000 soldiers. So which one of these 4 force wielders would you choose to take out 1,000 clone troopers with no help? Your options were Darth freaking Vader. Darth Vader, yes, the Dark Lord of the Sith himself. We have Luke Skywalker, son of Darth Vader. So you've got Luke Skywalker.
Wait, what?
Oh, spoiler alert.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know until just now.
I'm sorry, Doa.
Wow.
So
How
when
did I miss it over all these years?
When you told us before we started recording that you wish you could have had coffee this late, maybe you should have had coffee this late.
Maybe.
The other option was Darth Maul. And finally, hello there, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I will start with you, Doa. Who did you select in this poll?
I mean, there's only one answer. There's when you think about it, really, when you really break it down, there's only one answer, and the only answer is Darth Vader. I mean, he's the strongest, arguably one of the strongest, if not the strongest force wielder ever to exist. Everyone else was, Obi-Wan was like good. He was known to be very strong, but he was also known to, lose duels to Anakin from time to time. He was bested by other Jedi in training. He wasn't like, we never really saw him take on an army by himself, and battle droids don't count because they're weak. So we know Obi-Wan is a strong Jedi, but he's far from the strongest Jedi. He's maybe like top 50,
What
in the Jedi Order, at the height of the Republic, I would say Obi-Wan's probably like top 50, maybe top 20.
No.
In terms of force power. I'm pretty sure. Let me continue though. We can talk about this more later. Darth Maul, just an apprentice, clearly not as strong as the other ones. Probably the weakest on the list, honestly. Luke Skywalker, very naturally gifted. At his peak, who knows what is his peak really? Is that Mandalorian era, when he's like just mostly training Grogu and just kind of chilling out and stuff like that? Seems very strong then. Is it Jedi era, where he was taking on Darth Vader and kind of going toe to toe using that raw force strength? Either way, not as strong, So I think it's just obviously Darth Vader. I mean, for many, many reasons. He's the only one who really has like taken on, comparable numbers too.
I will give you a compliment sandwich here, Doa.
Oh,
so I hope you're hungry.
Okay, I'm ready.
Here it comes.
I'm ready. Lay it on me. Slice it in half, though, corner-wise.
Do you want it diagonally or like
diagonally and leave the crust on? Actually,
okay. We're doing a diagonal cut, crust on compliment sandwich just for you, Doa. Okay.
Go. Thank you.
Your analysis of Darth Vader was very apropos. It was very good. Your take on on Obi-Wan Kenobi was so bad. And finally, you have very lovely glasses. That is my compliment sandwich.
Okay, I'll take that. And because to me, the internal part of that sandwich is delicious, because I think I'm right. So I will gobble that sandwich down deliciously. But, you can have your opinion too. Some people like salami, some people don't. Some people like peanut butter and jelly, some people don't. So, the interior of a sandwich varies greatly. So I respect your comment.
What about you, Charmer? Who did you vote for?
This is probably going to be a bit of a hot take, but I voted for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And there are a couple of reasons. First, just looking at the list, yes, Anakin has bested him, but he's also bested Anakin. Like, I have the high ground as one of the most iconic lines in the prequels, right? It is the birth of so much. Obi-Wan Kenobi also has a lot of military experience. And so if you're talking about like taking on a battalion, his work as a general during Clone Wars, and, you know, we got that kind of expanded upon in the shows as well, I think really stands out. That was during an era where, much like what Doa said about Luke, really Anakin during the Clone Wars saga was just kind of getting by on raw power and not on like military strategy and so forth. So if I'm talking about like taking on a battalion, I'm going to lean, I think, on Obi-Wan in that regard. But also, and this was the big one that made me kind of go, okay, I'm going to put him over the top. Obi-Wan very rarely, he's not impervious to it, but he very rarely does things for flair. Darth Vader is somebody who, whether it's Anakin or Darth Vader, is somebody who likes to make a splash. He has a flair for the dramatic. He doesn't just do the most efficient thing. Sometimes he does things just to terrify you. Sometimes he does things because he wants it to look cool. And there's like no denying it. There's several sequences, both in canon comics, where he's like piloting a TIE fighter with the force power so he can stand on the roof of it, and just all sorts of weird stuff. Like I'm just saying. So
he's ghost riding the whip. He's force ghost riding the whip.
If there's ever somebody who would like get himself into trouble by just trying to be like overly dramatic, I think it would be him. Where I think Obi-Wan, if he knows the stakes going in, is just going to get the job done. So ultimately I went with Obi-Wan. I couldn't go with Luke just because, even though I think he's incredibly powerful, we never got to see him fight on a big scale. Nothing where it's like him versus a battalion like we got to see with Darth Vader and Obi-Wan during Clone Wars, during, you know, the big large scale warfare. And I love Darth Maul as a character, and I really appreciate what they did with him in Clone Wars and in Rebels. They kind of turned him into a more scheming character. Obviously in the films, doesn't really speak. He just comes out and does cool ninja stuff. Who doesn't love that? But I like that they dove further into like, he's actually not that strong, like physically. And one, because that explains why he loses to Obi-Wan twice. And two, it makes sense if you put into context that he was Sidious's apprentice, and Sidious was a schemer. And so you would expect Darth Maul to have similar traits, and so that's why I love the character. But I agree with Doe. I think he's probably last on this list for what I would pick for taking out a battalion.
Yeah.
Now he might figure out a way to recruit and turn them, something like that. But you know, kind of like what he did with Mandalore. But I don't think that he's just going to single-handedly take him.
We're talking about peak force strength, though. That was the metrics.
Right? Force strength is just like it was for you have to be a force wielder at their peak of their being. So I voted. Okay, I think that it's fairly obvious. It's Darth Vader in my books as well. I think Darth Vader is just it has the most. Like when you're showing up to the job interview, he has the most references for like mass murder, right? So he's the one where, you know, they'll call and they'll be like, oh yeah, he absolutely just completely walked through our Corellian Corvette and just sliced through them like a hot knife through butter. That's kind of it is. But what I want to just sort of get at is I like the Obi-Wan selection because you're right, because he has the most, I feel, battlefield actual experience of in that kind of warfare, dealing with that sort of mass amount of humanity or enemies to deal with. Plus he knows the clone troopers' tactics and their strategies because he's worked so closely with them. Is he, I think, in my opinion, when you say that he's a top 50, that is kind of really selling him short. I think that he's easily a top 10 Jedi of all time. And I mean, you're going to throw Yoda up there. You're probably going to throw Luke up there.
Sure. Yoda's definitely bigger than, because are we talking about, because I was led to believe that this was pure force power we're talking about.
Oh, no.
Not like strategic mind, because the wording is at their peak, which of these force users? Yeah. So what is their peak? What defines their peak? I took it as force strength.
Well, I mean, it's a combination of everything. I mean, but ultimately for me, I'm a little surprised when we get to the results of this.
The results shocked me.
Yes. And you know what? Let's get to them. Let's get to the results.
Me too, a little bit, actually. Yeah.
Let's get to the results here. And the results are in the lead with a clean 67%. So a clean 2/3 of the vote is Darth Vader. And the reason, for the record, when I was watching this closely as I put this out, I think it took about 20 votes before anybody voted for not Darth Vader. He had 100% of the votes through the first 15 to 20 votes that were received. And there is one scene that was brought up to us by Roll-On Gaming, who replied to it and said, "This is all I need to know to influence my vote," which is a panel from a comic, a Darth Vader comic, where it's him surrounded by enemies, and his word bubble or his speech bubble says, "All I am surrounded by is fear and dead men." And it's not even concerned. But at 67%, it is Darth Vader. Tied for second, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul, which really shocked me because with Luke Skywalker coming in last at 9.6%, so Darth Maul and Obi-Wan at 11.7% apiece. Luke Skywalker being last absolutely blows my freaking mind. I thought it was going to be a close... I thought Darth Vader was going to run away with at least 50%. I thought Luke Skywalker was easy to catch at least 20 to 25% of the vote. And I'm going to refer to everybody to the, is it season 2's finale of Mandalorian, where he comes in and rescues Grogu and the crew.
Yeah.
And he just walks through this little squadron of these death troopers that Mando could barely get away from one, and he just destroys 12 of them like they're nothing. So when we're talking peak, I think post Return of the Jedi is his peak in strength,
probably,
and everything.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So the fact that he's last is a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't deserve last. I mean, Vader definitely deserves first. He's literally half Force. And I think this is dorky, and I've never liked this about Star Wars lore, but he's literally a Force virgin birth. He is 50% Force. So you don't get much more powerful than that, right?
Well,
he's pretty saturated with Force.
But then does that mean that that's really his triumph, or does he have to give half of his victory away to midichlorians?
It doesn't matter. Power is power.
I don't want to add any kind of weird chemical or we're not adding chemistry to this.
We don't talk about.
I always thought it sounded like
right?
a disease. Oh man, I caught the midichlorians.
Yeah, God, I had a night of death sticks at the cantina. Woke up with a bad case of midichlorians.
I sat in the wrong hot tub on the cruise and I caught a case of the midichlorians.
There's got to be some Star Wars diseases that exist.
I'm sure there are. I mean, they have Bacta for a reason. So
yeah, but I'm diseases. Okay, because I've never actually heard one. Okay, so there is a Rakghoul plague. Oh, I feel like I have heard of that somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Hibernation sickness is on this list. That doesn't really count. That's an effect of a technological experience. Kandorian plague. Lots of plagues apparently.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so there's a couple. There's a couple here and there.
But
yeah.
I think overall, 67% to Darth Vader is fair. The fact that Darth Maul was tied for second blows my mind, because I think that as cool as he is, I would put Darth Maul up against one-on-one against 90% of the Jedi that are out there at the time. But I would probably pump the brakes on... Yeah, I think he can... I think that at Darth Maul at his peak could probably ace 90% of the Jedi that are out there. And keep in mind, there's still 100 of them that would probably crush him. No, more than that. How many Jedi were at the peak? 10,000? At the height of the Republic?
That's why that's why I would put Obi-Wan top 50, because I agree that he was a great strategic mind, it seemed like. And he was an accomplished duelist, but as far as raw Force power, it doesn't seem like he was
maybe not. Yeah,
near the peak,
I also have a little bit of a bone to pick with you, Charmer. When you talk about the fact that Obi-Wan is not about flair and dramatics, did he not just drop in the middle of this battle droid AA meeting and say hello there, and then just
he made a ridiculous pose?
Listen, he is not immune. I said that he's not all business all the time, but I would also argue that those are moments that I think Anakin was a bad influence on Obi-Wan. I think that you look at young Padawan Obi-Wan, and then the more time he spends with Anakin, the more reckless Obi-Wan kind of becomes in many ways. Mm-hmm. And so I think that when you look at General Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Clone Wars and what he would bring to the table, I just feel he has a good shot at a fight. I mean, like, let's be honest. We all know Darth Vader is the correct answer, but I wanted to go with Obi-Wan. I honestly thought Obi-Wan was going to be third. I agree with you, Flake. I thought Luke was going to be a very clear-cut second, and I was shocked that he was last.
I think if the question was like, who's your favorite Jedi of these four, the results would be like very different, right?
Yeah.
There'd be much more variety. But it is interesting to see, where people rate Luke, Darth Maul, and Obi-Wan. I mean, we really need X, or we need either X to give us more poll options, or we need to just like get a better poll platform, because there's so many things. Like, we could add Yoda on there, we could add Mace Windu on there.
But that's the beauty of it.
I want more.
The beauty is that we are so limited that we ourselves have to like struggle and to bang our heads together to only put 4 options on there. All right. So what did we miss from a headline perspective? There was an FFG stream about multiplayer stuff. I think there was a bunch of slides that came up, but a lot of it for us was not necessarily a lot of extra information. And if we're missing such, we'll get back to it. I mean, a lot of us were kind of busy this week and didn't get to really dig too deep.
I admit I did miss that one.
Yeah.
I'm getting to play solo dad for a while. And that's a lot of work. I'm finding out, taking care of a 6-month-old by yourself. It's fun, but it's time consuming. It is time consuming.
Is that an EA game? Solo Dad?
No, it's the
Bethesda.
It's a sequel to Solo, a Star Wars story where they have Kylo Ren. Yeah.
All right. So let's just dig right into the spoilers. How about that? As we want to clear the mailbag. That's kind of our mission this week. So
there was a lot of weeks where we were like, hey, we're all going to get together again at some point, and now we're finally all together. So
yeah,
we can do that. We can tackle the mailbag.
Let's do it. So let's cruise through some of these spoilers, some of which are probably pretty paltry. I mean, I'm just gonna go through the 3 bases. Yeah, we'll do the 3 bases. I mean, it's just a vigilance, an aggression, and a cunning base. You start with Capital City on Lothal. That's your vigilance base. No game text, just 30 health. So Lothal is another location. Kestro City, aggression, 30 health. Vardos. Is Vardos where? Is this where like the ISB are located?
I don't know. I don't know Vardos actually.
Like this, I'm looking at this and I'm getting the thoughts of.
Hold on.
It was the home of Iden Versio.
Yeah. I was trying to think of the game. What is it? Battlefront 2. Okay. Isn't that where we first meet Iden?
Does Battlefront 2 have a good single player?
Yeah.
Okay. I never played it. Maybe I'll have to go back and do that.
I think that was like the only reason I even picked that.
I played the old Battlefront.
Yeah. So Iden Versio, I was trying to Battlefront 2 Inferno Squad. Excuse me, brain going faster than my mouth there. That is the setting for a chunk of that game.
Okay. Anyone else slightly bothered that we see Chopper base before we see like a Chopper card?
Yes.
There's got to be one out there.
There's going to be one. I mean, when it comes out is going to be a curious case of Benjamin Button. Actually, we shall actually get to that.
Base first.
Yeah.
I got a feeling the Force is telling me that we're going to see a Chopper sooner rather than later.
We've got like all the other Spectre things so far, right? I can't think of any other Spectre members that haven't been revealed yet, right?
There's been a bunch.
Last time.
There's definitely been a bunch.
I don't think there's any left, but I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
C'est la vie. There you go. Chopper base is on Adelon, and what I really like about the artwork of this is it kind of gives you a little bit more of a what's the term? Oh, I guess like an impression of the size of what a Corellian Corvette is, because we see Corellian Corvette and we think that it's a capital starship, but no, this thing can land on like the surface, and so that's fun to put that into perspective. Who wants to do the next one?
I'll do it. Sure. because I've got for a while I had the Jabba's Palace expansion box in the background. It's gone. It's been replaced by Life Day Chewbacca, but it was there long enough, and that expansion was all about this guy's hangout. It's Jabba the Hutt, cunning daimyo. He was retroactively made a daimyo in Book of Boba Fett. He, in Star Wars Unlimited, though, is a 4-cost cunning villainy card, 2 strength, 8 defense, underworld Hutt, and this is where it gets really interesting. Each trick event you play costs 1 resource less, and when played, search the top 8 cards of your deck for a trick event, reveal it, and draw it. Put the rest on the bottom in any order, in random order, my bad, in random order. But I think this is the first time we've seen a card target a specific type of event. Because remember, just like units and things have traits, events essentially have traits as well. So this targets a specific type of event, which I think is really interesting and brings up some, kind of intriguing deck building possibilities. So I'm looking forward to kind of like looking through. I don't know off the top of my head what events are tricks, but I'm looking through right now. But I think there might be some neat stuff down the road with that type of thing. So I love cards that have like very specific kind of effects like this. So I'm excited about this one.
This card is really cool. The stat line on it is, I feel, quite apropos for what this is meant to be. I mean, the fattest of asses. Let's just get real here.
Jabba's a big boy.
Yeah, Jabba's packing heat. But this is a card, actually, that I saw chatter about this card. People sharing the image, talking about it, who were not previously interested in Star Wars U. All of us here are very connected to every other card game that we've ever played and the communities and the personalities involved with it. This is the first time that I saw somebody outside of the Star Wars Unlimited community tweet about this card multiple times, multiple people, and it was all positive. It was, this is a feels right, feels good, feels appropriate type of card, and I'm really into it. And again, I think that this card does the game good justice in terms of how you can have a good feel for the card. The character is representing the card text to a degree. I think this is an awesome card.
Yeah, so I'm looking through the events that are tricks, and there's some extremely good ones. Waylay is a trick. That's the one where it's just return a non-leader unit to its owner's hand. Asteroid Sanctuary is a trick. Exhaust an enemy unit, give a shield token to a friendly unit that costs 3 or less. Shoot First is a trick. That's the one that gives you a little buff and lets you do your combat damage first. Bamboozle is a trick. That's one where you can discard a cunning card instead of paying for it, but you exhaust the unit and return their upgrades to their owner's hands. Like, the tricks are not for kids. They are for big boy card game players. They are looking good.
That I really like about this card as well is that as we get more sets and we get potentially tricks that could be outside of cunning, perhaps this might still allow you or entice you to play cards that are outside of your aspect, because you pay the tax, but it's also going to be a little bit more manageable in that regard as well.
Theoretically 1 instead of 2, unless you're missing 2 of the aspects instead of just 1. But yeah, I mean, you could play like heroism, cunning tricks in a villainy deck with Jabba the Hutt and pay only 1 more for them, like you're saying. So yeah, I think obviously you have to draw him and you have to play him, but I think he offers a lot of interesting deck building possibilities. And I see this card and I'm like, there's got to be really fun ways to make this synergize with other things. That's a card that looks like, I should be able to find a way to break this, It's exciting.
Speaking of drawing him, the artwork by David Nash. David Nash, I think, is quickly becoming my favorite artist for Star Wars U. I think he's done a couple others, but it's just, the artwork is great. I love it. I think it's really rad. What also is part of this is it says each trick event you play costs 1 less. Doesn't say to a minimum of 1, which a lot of other card games will have when they're offering discounts for spells. To a degree, I look a lot at Hearthstone. Hearthstone has a lot of cards that will reduce the cost of certain things, but many of them lately in the past few years have put the sort of baseline at cannot cost less than 1. This doesn't say that. It's just, if it costs 1, it's free, and that's always fun when you can just do things for free.
I When I saw this, I just real quick, I also remember saying to it was either Flake or Doa. I remember saying it to one of you that there needs to be a card that instead of destroying a unit or defeating a unit based on its health, right? There should be one where it's like destroy a unit that's 2 power or less. And then the art needs to be Leia choking out Jabba just to fully sell the theme.
Yeah, I'm down.
I think that's fair.
I've got 2 things to add real quick with this. One, I like the way the art is stylized. It's done well. I'm not generally a big fan of highly stylized art, but this is okay. My only complaint is that Jabba has like a weird pointy bit on his head. I don't know what the deal with that is. That's strange. He's kind of like got a little built-in wizard cap there. That's a bit odd. But aside from that, I think I like the art generally. But the more interesting thing I wanted to say is that like now I want a leader that sometime in the future that just has one of their things is just a passive ability that says your events are also tricks.
Oh.
And then have like other things that synergize with tricks, and so then Jabba just kind of is like a major cog in a machine that's this sort of like event engine. It'd be very cool to see like it makes sense too to see sort of like an underworld scum and villainy kind of like cunning based trick oriented event deck. That sounds like a really fun deck to play. So I hope they go farther with the concept that we're kind of seeing here with Jabba the Hutt.
I think that's cool.
It's very cool.
I just now that you've pointed that out, the little pointy bit, I just picture him coming out of like a whipped cream can,
It looks like, yeah.
And that little like a soft serve ice cream, and then the little folded over little tip at the end.
Or like C-3PO was like styling his head or something like that. Like you would style someone's hair and you just like got into little point.
I found one of the tweets Flake was talking about. Good friend Frank Moon, who has played a lot of Magic, currently does coverage stuff for One Piece.
He's a game designer for Gods Unchained, I think.
I don't know if he still is, but he was at one time. Again, cool. Just like us, lots of experience in the space. Retweeted it and said, "This is such a good card design. I have no idea how this game works, but I still have a very strong understanding of what this card does and how it resonates thematically."
Yeah.
And that's all you want or need, right? Like even if you don't know the rules, you look at it and you're like, I get what this is supposed to do.
All right.
This is a card gamer's card, which I understand that first set of a new card game, an IP like Star Wars, you want it to be accessible, you want it to, bring in a lot of new players who maybe aren't as familiar with card games. But I'm glad that we see a good old-fashioned card gamer's card in here too. Warms my heart.
All right, let's move on to the next one. I'm going to do the next one because, Doa, you're going to get the one after that. And the next...
Charmer doesn't get one?
Oh, he'll get one all right. He gets the best one.
Okay.
I'm going to show you, friends, Protector. This is a double vigilance. So another double aspect card. So double vigilance, single cost upgrade. Attached unit gains Sentinel, and it gives it a +1/+1. The... tribal, I suppose, the tagline for the card is innate. So you've got Shirt on there, just going bow staffing everyone like crazy, which is awesome. Donnie Yen is a really cool dude. I watched all 4 Ip Man movies when I had like those health issues a few years ago. I was in the hospital for a while, so I was like, let's just Ip Man it up the whole way. Very cool. By the way, if you don't know what Ip Man is, I will summarize the entire series of movies, all 4 or 5 of them, which is people come in, want to fight Ip Man. Ip Man says, no, I will not fight. They come back. I want to fight you. No, I will not fight. Fine, I will fight your loved ones. He says, fine, I will fight. And then he wins. That's pretty much the premise of all the Ip Man movies. There you go. Protector. Very simple upgrade. I think it's something like this. I think there was always going to be something that are going to grant keywords. And in this case, Sentinel was just part of it, and it just makes sense. It's in Vigilance where it needs to be. The fact that it also gives a buff. I would think that the Sentinel aspect would probably have been a +0/+2. That's where I would have leaned on it. But I think that this is a pretty good card.
Yeah, I think it's neat. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the card is great, but I will just point out The art on this is interesting because it's got kind of like a motion blur to it, and you can see like the impact of the staff hitting the stormtrooper. And when I first saw this card, I just thought like, I want the Rogue One anime now. Like, give me this crew, like him and his buddy before we get to Rogue One. Like, what is his adventures? And things like that ahead of time. But like this, I don't know what it is. It looks like it's a still from an actual like anime or a cartoon. And then I was like, man, now I kind of want this.
Kind of looks cool. It looks like a picture that was taken off of like a Motorola Razr.
A Motorola Razr.
I
remember
my
when
age.
Those were like the cool thing, you know.
Yeah. But look how slim it is. It's like, all right.
You know, the one thing I'm surprised about with this card is that it's double vigilance. Because I feel like the other cards that we've seen that have granted things like what we saw one that granted like Saboteur, didn't we? Or something like that. We saw, and that was just aggression, right? That wasn't double aggression, was it?
Like when I see cards like this, the way that I kind of evaluate them is it kind of shows you the worth of what a keyword like Sentinel is giving you, because if this was a 1-drop or a 1-cost single vigilance, I think that would be maybe too good. But throwing a second vigilance on there, I'd almost prefer it be a 2-cost single vigilance than a 1-cost double vigilance, because what this now does is it's like, all right, you're going to have to pay 3 for this unless you want to double up on vigilance, and in which case is 3 too much. But again, maybe this is a key component to putting this on a fat boy that's on the board to just protect your health total.
Yeah, I just looked up Infiltrator's skill is aggression, single aggression, to give Saboteur. So I guess I'm a little bit surprised it's double vigilance. I see what you're saying with that, but I don't know if giving a unit Sentinel in 1/1 is strong enough to warrant the double aspect, because that makes it difficult to include in other decks. You could still pay 3 for it. I don't think I would pay 3 to give something Sentinel in 1/1 personally, but maybe people will. But I'm a little bit surprised. I don't know if that's totally warranted or not, but I'm surprised. I'll just put that out there.
For me, there's a couple of things that I think are worthy of consideration when you look at the costing. One, this can, even though the art is very clearly ground units, this can be attached to space units. It's flexible, right? It can go on vehicles, it can go on ground units, and go on spacecraft. Yeah. 2, I think that this, more so than perhaps the other keywords, has a bigger impact in limited. And so I think that when you are considering like when you would pay 3 for this, in constructed, paying 3 probably feels bad. But in constructed, you've probably got plenty of ways, if you are on double vigilance, to make use of this. But in limited, I can absolutely see some situations where I run this anyway, because it might just be my only way out of certain situations. If you start falling behind, and 3 might be totally worth just slapping Sentinel in a lane that you're losing.
Yeah, I once again have discounted limited, and I'm only thinking with my constructed brain. However, I also don't really want to balance a game for limited, so I don't know. You both have valid points, but I'm still not a fan of this. But we can't have everything we want.
True.
But turns out we can have some pretty cool things.
Like,
which I knew we were getting our own spoilers, which we knew they were coming. We knew they were coming, but I kid you not, I did not look through our document for the day, and I did not know they were in there until this moment. So
basically, we got these while we were on the way to the boat. And I mentioned in our little private chat, I said, hey, check the email there's a gift for us there, which was the spoilers.
Yeah, I think I didn't get that Erik off. No, I think you threw Erik off because you said, "Hey, Charmer."
Oh, right.
For you. So I don't think he looked because you said me.
Yeah, I remember that message, and So I thought it was, and I was busy at the time. So.
That is my bad.
When it came in.
That is my bad, because we got it literally. I think we were in an Uber going to the cruise ship.
Well, you get to see me react to it in real time, though. So this is great.
You absolutely do. So, but I'm
very excited about this.
With no further waiting involved. We do have 2 brand new cards for you the viewer, the listener, the Star Wars U fan, Doa, what is our spoiler card this week?
It's so funny. I was looking at this and then I was going back to like SuiDB and I was like, wait, that's not on there. And I'm like, oh, so okay, well, let's check it out. So I have the pleasure of now revealing the card Power of the Dark Side. There it is. 3 cost, Vigilance, Villainy. An opponent chooses a unit they control, defeat that unit. So you've seen, other things that cost a little bit more in Vigilance that take out units. This is cheaper. 3 cost is not that bad. Your opponent chooses, but I think this is great for a lot of slower control decks where you just want to basically keep base with your opponent on board. And, if they only have 1 unit out, that's huge, right? Because then they have to get rid of it. So it's semi-targetable by when you can play it, I suppose. Say they're on their 3 resource turn, you let them go first, they spend their resources on a unit, you just drop this, and if you're playing a slower deck, that's fine. Then just neither of you get cards that turn on the board, and so that's better for you if you're the slower deck, and you're wanting to sustain until the late game. So I'm excited about this card. It's an uncommon. I think it's going to be a useful thing to just throw in there to just thin out the board. Again, if you're playing a slower controlier deck.
I love this card. I think the art is fantastic. If you are listening and you're not watching the YouTube video, it is Darth Vader force lifting. It's not even just a force choke. It's like a force crumble. And there's bodies also on the ground. It's very fitting actually for the poll that we had for this episode because man is getting the job done. But I like this card for 2 big reasons. One, this is kind of close to a counterspell in the way this game plays. If your opponent has a clear board and they take an action to play a unit and that's the unit you want to get rid of, well then when you take your action, you play this and boom, they have to get rid of the unit they just played. Now that does mean you have to keep the board clear, but if you are in Villainy and Vigilance, that's kind of your game plan to begin with, let's be honest. The other reason that I'm a big fan of this card is that it specifically does not say non-leader. It's an opponent chooses a unit. Yeah. And so if somebody is trying to set off a big swing turn, and I'm thinking about the Cunning Han Solo, for example, where they might be trying to get some additional resources going to power up their turn, this could be a great way to slow things down cost effectively. So again, if you can kind of keep the board clear and you get your opponent into a situation where they take their epic action to deploy their leader, then you can just answer with 3 resources and then you've stopped whatever they wanted to do with their leader, which is a big power play.
What I
think
like
about this. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, part of this, what I like about it is the counterspell aspect is correct, but it has to be because you're maintaining the board state as being relatively clear. So there's 2 ways that you can kind of go about this. The first one is you're strategically removing things off the board where all that's when the cheese stands alone, you could play this and they have to get rid of it. This is shades of Rakdos, I guess, for Magic players with a lot of sacrifice and things like that. There's a lot of black spells in Magic that force your opponent to make a choice. But if there's no choice, then you're kind of doomed. This card fits precisely what I'm thinking Command Vigilance Villainy is going to be, which is going to be ramp, control, big bodies on the board, and get it done. I'm really, really liking this card. And yes, this is like the scene from Rogue One. He's going through the hallways of the Tantive 4 and just slaughtering people. But this is incredible. I think that this card is going to be very strong. I think it's uncommon for the cost and the dual aspect. I think this card is perfectly costed. I think this card is perfectly rarefied, I guess, if you want to say. This is going to be this card has potential pack 1 pick 1. If the rares are garbage, then I think that this is a card that you can be very happy to pick up as a pack 1 pick 1.
Totally. I mean, I think about combinations like Vigilance Cunning too, where on a 6 resource turn you waylay one of their guys and then you Power of the Dark Side, whatever's left, right? And that can help you very selectively remove a strong unit. So there's, as long as you're good at picking the right time to play this card, it could be very, very strong. So yeah, I'm excited about it. And I agree that it is costed appropriately. It's not too cheap that you can fit it in anywhere. It's not too expensive that you're going to be de-incentivized from using it. I think it's going to find a home in a lot of Vigilance decks. So I'm excited about this. I'm glad we got what looks like a really usable card. That's pretty hype.
Charmer.
Yes.
I had to endure 3 nights of your presence. Okay. I will give you this next reveal, but you have to promise me that next time we're on a boat together, you are sleeping outside. Deal?
Sure.
Outside the boat?
Outside the boat. Yes.
Yeah, he's in the lifeboat hanging over the side.
I can answer the call of the void.
Do it. All right. Hit us with the next one, Charmer.
Okay. This one I am very excited about because it is one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. It's one that we have talked about a lot on this podcast, and also...
Hold on. For those who are watching this live on the premiere on YouTube, type in chat right now what you think that card is, because I'm sure you've mentioned it multiple times, so people will get it right. Go for it. Shout it out in the car if you're listening to this on Spotify.
Yeah, shout it out in the car. One last hint. It was not a Force user, so they were not on our poll. But if they were, then I think that I would pick them over any of said Force users because it is, of course, the war criminal himself, Chopper, Metal Menace. This is a heroism and cunning ground unit. Has a 1 cost, but don't let that fool you. He's got a 1/3 body, Rebel, Droid, and Spectre tags. So, of course, you can fit them in the Hera list. Says, while you control another Spectre unit, this gains Raid 1. So it's a 1/3 that can potentially swing as a 2/3, but also, but wait, there's more. On attack, discard a card from the defending player's deck. If it's an event, exhaust a resource that player controls. So he can be aggressive. He can gum up your plans and exhaust your resources. He can play a fatigue game and start milling cards from your deck, sending them to the discard pile. He does it all for the low cost of 1. He is an absolute Metal Menace. I love that that's what they used as his descriptor here.
Well, thank you, Billy Mays, for that sales pitch.
I now, and I kid you not, I had no idea this was being revealed when I was making my comments about Chopper earlier in the episode.
That's what made it so good.
Document. I was badly prepared, and it paid off this time. Yeah, because I didn't know this was coming. But I knew there had to be a Chopper card out there, and here we go. There's a Chopper card. And he's great. Holy crap. Costs 1 for all that? Like, essentially, you're paying 1 for a 2/3, because you could, with the Raid 1 attack and all that. I like that it is only Raid 1 instead of just straight up a 2/3. That would have just been plain too good. You would have either had to make him legendary or knock off a health or something like that. But he fits in with a lot of the other early cheap droids in the set that are usually low power, high health. Fits in with R2, fits in with C3PO. And so, yeah, I mean, even if he was a 1 with Raid, 1 for a 1/3 with Raid 1 with a Spectre tag, like that's already decent. But the fact that he has that really potentially strong on attack, like denying your opponent a resource, if you can go first, if you can claim the initiative when you've got this guy out and go first and flip an event on their discard and then deny them a whole resource, that's a massive advantage that you've just gained. So this is a card that is going to be very scary to face down. And you talk about like pack 1, pick 1 unlimited. I think if you see this, you're like, all right, I'm playing cunning, and I'm gonna really hope I hit this guy in my first hand every game.
Yeah,
that's a great card.
It's an exceptional card, and first things first, you're completely correct, Charmer. I put Force Wielder on there for a reason, and the reason being that we have proof that 1,000 is like a casual day off for Chopper because he's taken out tens of thousands. In fact, I think his kill count, if you Google it, and Charmer, you can confirm it, is upwards in the like 40 or 50,000 range of how many people Chopper has brought over to the other side.
Most of that is like from a single Star Destroyer, if I remember right. Though.
That is correct.
Right? Yeah.
Two of them like crashing into each other or something like that.
He sabotaged one and exploded or something. Yeah.
Chopper is I think the epitome of value and disruption, and this is again that kind of what locks down for me what is important about cunning, which is you want the initiative, and a lot of the cards you want to be the first one to go ahead and muck up people's plans. How many was it, Charmer?
The quick summary I found says Chopper from Star Wars Rebels is considered one of the deadliest characters with a history of violence and destruction against the Empire. Chopper has killed over 4,000 enemies, including Imperial officers, stormtroopers, and entire crews of ships he sabotaged.
There you go. There you
It's
go.
hardcore.
I think that's lowballing it, frankly, because I don't think that. I mean, all right. So minimum a battalion for him is like a day off. Like that's what he does when he's not on the clock.
Does for fun.
But yeah, I mean, being able to go first and early on, being able to attack, finding an event, and again, if you pair this up with Thrawn, you know what the card's going to be, so that can kind of help tailor your strategies to a degree. But you attack with this, you find an event, you mill it away, and then you exhaust a resource. They're going to be playing at half speed for the first couple turns, or you're nerfing their resource system, which is important. And as a 1/3, this is not very simple to get off the board early. I feel like if you're playing cunning, you are playing 3 copies of Chopper, and you're just hoping that you get this guy early because this guy is a beast, an absolute beast. Metal Menace is so appropriate for this card. Oh God, this card kind of makes me want to play a little bit more cunning. God, there's so much I want to do with this game. So much.
I think running like a command cunning Hera deck could be pretty cool. I like cunning as sort of the splash there because you've got buffing for units and things like that from the command side of things, but then cunning just gives you so much utility. I think it's a really great color, a really great aspect to splash in this game just in general. So the fact that Chopper is cunning, off the top of my head, I don't remember what else. Oh yeah, we've got the event that's cunning as well for Spectre. For Spark of Rebellion, I believe it is. So yeah, I think now that I see this, that does push me in the direction of command cunning for the Spectre deck specifically. But either way, that's going to be a fun like tribal to experiment with when the game comes out.
You know what else is also really interesting? The heroic forces, when you factor in the heroism side, really benefit from the droids, because I'm thinking about, you've got Chopper, you've also got R2-D2, which is a heck of a 1-drop. He's got his 1/4 body with his when played and on attack. We still have C-3PO at the 2-drop, and then recently we've got to see how powerful like K2SO can be. I really feel like the Empire needs to step up their droid game, because these heroic droids are kind of carrying.
Oh, I'm terrified about when the destroyer droids are released. I think those things they're going to be shielded. They're going to be unbearably powerful, I feel. They're going to be 4/4 overwhelm shielded or some nonsense like that.
You're talking about like the rolling, like the droidicas from the prequels?
Yeah,
I mean, those have to be shielded, right? I mean, that's like their whole shtick, isn't it? In the movie.
They better have like 2 shields. They better be double shielded.
It'd be nasty.
One shield strong enough, but I like the idea of a shielded 4/4. Like, what if it was a 4/4/4 and shielded?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That would be decent.
I think that's fair. I like the fact that, because I think the overwhelm would kind of fit in with it because they're rolling, so they kind of like can barrel through. But
ambush with shield.
Ambush with shield could be cool too. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 2 brand new cards for Star Wars Unlimited, and once again, they are Power of the Dark Side and our boy, the war criminal, Chopper. Get to the chopper.
Get the chopper.
All right. So our episode today is just basically going to be, we got a bunch of questions for the mailbag, and we want to sort of do a little spring cleaning, even though it's we're in the center of January. So let's get to it. And I want to say, first and foremost, that actually, you know what? It's a big mailbag episode. So I will tell you this. Let's say we got to do the transition. So Charmer, I'm going to ask you this, man.
I'm a stormtrooper.
No.
Chopper rolling at me.
No, because it doesn't even. You're dead before you even know it.
The ship you're on has exploded.
You're on a cruise ship. You're sitting at a Texas Hold'em table. You've just gone all in because you found a 2 and a 4 that are suited. You're already beaten by a flush. There's one more card to come up. What do you say?
So this is difficult because I'm supposed to say I have a bad feeling, but this actually happened over the weekend, and then I hit the straight flush and won, and so I didn't have a bad feeling. But yes, I would traditionally say I have a bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about it.
Quiet.
So the fun part about that, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's not just that he hit a straight flush to stay alive in a game of Texas Hold'em on a cruise ship, but the next day he weasels out a royal flush to like knock out 2 people or something like that, or to just like double or triple up his stack.
Wow.
Like an absolute boss. I have a picture of it. I'll throw it up on the screen. You guys can all look at his major Smucker's face.
Yeah. But here's the reason that I got the royal flush. It's the first time ever playing Texas Hold'em anyway that I've gotten a royal flush, and I've played a lot of poker. But I got it because I was wearing my Wampa Radio t-shirt. That's what I'm blaming it on.
Blame it or give it credence, but ultimately, let's get to the mailbag, friends. If you want to give us some questions, you can always tweet at us at Wampa Radio. You can send it to the mailbag at wamparadiopodcast@gmail.com. First up, Doa, select what you wish.
I'm just going to start at the top. The first question we've got on the list from Jarvis Slenkar on X, formerly known as Twitter. Still known by many as Twitter. Maybe more one for the mailbag. Well, it is. That's why we're answering it. Congratulations. Do you believe uniqueness should be a concern in deck construction, considering units do not seem to stick around very much? How do you guys interpret this question?
So I think what the question is meant to be is that there's a lot of discussion in certain other forums that uniqueness is a limitation that people need to actually consider, because you don't want to draw another chopper when you have one on the board because you can't play it because of uniqueness rules.
Oh, okay.
So the question here is, should it even be a concern in deck construction, given the fact that, like he says, things don't tend to stick around. There's so much removal, there's so much exchange.
I don't think it's very much of a concern, but not for the reason that they said. I think the big reason that this is not a huge concern in Star Wars Unlimited is because if you have a duplicate of something in your hand and you don't think you're going to need to replace it on the board anytime soon, you can just resource it. So you've got this like handy mechanic built into the game to address situations like this. So, if I've got my chopper out and I draw another chopper, then I need to ask myself, okay, is this a card I'm going to want to spend resources on in a future turn to replace on the board? Or is this a card that I really only want out for like the first few turns, and when it gets removed, that's okay? And that means this duplicate is what I will resource this turn. So I think that's a really elegant way that this game deals with the fact that Star Wars does have a lot of unique characters, and there is a uniqueness rule in the game. That you can resource it. So so that's you just gotta ask yourself, am I gonna need to replace it? Do I want to replace it? If the answer to both of those is no, then you resource it, and then you're good. Yeah. So no, I'm not really concerned about it at all. It's only 3 of in the decks too, 50 cards, 3 of each card max. So you're not gonna run into those situations a ton probably where it would be problematic. So yeah, I'm not worried about that at all with this game.
My answer would be, you don't have to worry about it yet. Really, until you get to the point where you're considering running like 12 or 15 copies of the same character, then maybe you start to consider it. But for example, if you are somebody who plans on running 3 copies of the unit Luke Skywalker, and you also want to run the leader Luke Skywalker, like that's a no harm, no foul, right? You can just choose to save your epic action deployment. Having your leader kind of bump up against a unit you're running in your deck, I don't think is a huge deal. But there's also a case to be made about why you actually want more copies or different versions of the same unique character. And I'll give you a potential scenario. Again, this is just speculation. I don't know anything about the future, etc. But let's just say hypothetically, we get like Farm Boy Luke. or whatever you want to call him, right? And he's like a 2-cost or a 3-cost Luke, and he's, from Tatooine and blah, blah, blah. Running him and then the 7-cost Luke Skywalker in the same deck can actually be a bonus, because then you are more incentivized to run Luke's lightsaber, for example, because then if you draw Luke's lightsaber early, you have a unit you can put it on and get the full benefit. And then if you draw your late game bomb, you still can put it on him and get the full benefit. Right now, I think you're actually more incentivized to run just the generic Jedi lightsaber as opposed to, say, Luke's, because the generic one you can drop on Kanan, you can drop on Yoda, you can drop on all of these people. But I like the idea, as somebody who played a lot of Star Wars CCG, right, of mains and weapons. We all want to live that fantasy. I want Luke and Luke's lightsaber. So I think that when we see this game, 3 or 4 sets down the road, we'll probably have plenty of decks where we're running like 9 copies of Luke or whatever, just so that we can also run the weapon and get that big payoff.
So there's one thing I want to clarify here, is that I'm pretty sure that the uniqueness rule only applies to the specific card itself. So you can, in theory, have multiple copies of Luke Skywalker on the board if they are different Luke Skywalker cards. So you can have Leader Luke, and you can have Unit Luke, and you can have Farm Boy Luke or something like that. I was looking into it, but I believe that's the rule.
Now that you
right?
say that, I think that you are correct. I'm just so ingrained. That's going to take me a while to unlearn. I'm so ingrained with the old Star Wars CCG.
Like One Piece. There's other games like that where you have like multiple versions of the same character, and as long as it's not the exact same card, you can have multiple versions out there. Yeah. So we should clarify that you can have multiples as long as it's not the same exact card.
Yeah. The way it just doesn't come up very often in set 1.
Yeah, the way that they would reconcile this in like Star Wars CCG is, even if it's different titles, it's just one Luke on the board. In fact, the way that they did in Star Wars CCG is that if you had a Luke, you can just replace it with the other one. I think. I believe that was it.
So one second, I have the quick start rules in front of me just to double check, and I can read you the rule. It says you can have only one copy of each unique card in play at a time. If you ever have multiple copies of the same unique card in play under your control, you must immediately defeat one of them. So they're saying
so
it's as long as it is a one card of each unique, or one of each unique can be in play. So
I'm not sold though yet on that. Like if you have, let's say. And like, again, we're going to take this back to Star Wars CCG, where there was like 5 or 6 different versions of Luke. There was like Hoth Luke, Dagobah Luke, Farm Boy Luke, Jedi Luke. If you couldn't have 2, even though their names were different. I'm wondering if that's the same with this. I'm still not sold on it, but ultimately...
No, they clarified it early on. Doa reminded me of it by saying it. Again, it's something that's just ingrained in me, just like you, Flake. But now that Doa said it, it refreshed my memory. They did say that it's only for that specific card. That's why the subtitle matters, right? So when you look at Chopper Metal Menace, if we get Chopper War Criminal later, then you can have both of them out.
Yeah, Chopper at the Hague. Yes.
It threw me off too. Because I was an old Star Wars CCG player, of course, as well. But until I started playing One Piece, and then I got kind of used to having multiple versions of the same character.
So I will say this to answer the question, Jarvis. It's that. No, there's absolutely zero concern, and the reason being that for twofold. Even the way that Doa explains it, you can just tuck it away as a resource. But let's say it's late game. You're right. Cards are not meant for this world. They're not long for this earth, as it were. As we've seen how much and how aggressive these card games can be, there's a lot of exchanges, a lot of defeating characters and such. So I am not going to be limiting myself with unique units down to I'm only playing 2 because of it. No, that will never factor into my decision making when it comes to deck building.
Yeah.
All right. I'll do the next one. We got Virgent Games asks, how will you deal with a supply shortage if Star Wars U runs into the same issues that Lorcana had, such as impossible to get product, online sellers charging 300 to 500% of MSRP, No supply means stores being unable to support regular organized play. How do you keep up excitement and momentum? There's a lot of different questions here. The first one I will say is that I have been exceptionally critical of Lorcana's deployment of their product because it was justified and they bungled it massively, and there's still shortages for the most part. But the problem with that is also that Disney as an IP has a much broader appeal and a much broader collectability to than Star Wars does, believe it or not. And people who were collecting Lorcana and going after Lorcana were not exactly all card game players. They were Disney fans, and people who love Disney. They just wanted to get their hands on something collectible that is Disney. And there's excitement when you're opening packs to find the super rare chase cards and whatever. Those people who were out there hunting would, like, the fact that the demand was so high enticed the scalpers and those types to go out there, and the resellers that are charging 500% MSRP to go and profit and exploit that demand. So that is what kind of drove everything up. And I'm not blaming those who wanted to go out there and just collect the cards to put them in a binder. That is not at all what I'm doing. I welcome those people. You want those people, because if 10% of those people say, you know what, let's read the rules and play it, that's amazing for the game. I'm blaming those who are out there exploiting the interest, and I'm blaming Ravensburger for massively short printing the game at the time. My concern is not nearly on the same plane of existence as Lorcana is, and I will give you this as a sort of a little rock that you can rely on if ever you feel like you're concerned. Pre-orders are up. Pre-orders are available. Pre-orders, you can go and get your orders in now, and it's in stock and available to you. Lorcana sold out theoretically the second that it was announced. People were all over it, waiting to see and lining up and setting alarms and waiting outside of Targets and Walmarts and whatever and buying it out in droves. That is not what's happening with this. And some might say that that is a bad omen for it because people are not as hyped. I don't think it is. I think that's perfectly fine. I think that you're going to want cards, you're going to get cards. Now, that's not obviously going to be a blanket statement to cover everything, because if you're in an area where only one LGS has it, but the interest is high, well, it's going to be tougher to get it. But then you can just hop on, find an online retailer, an LGS that sells nationally or internationally, and get it from that way. I am in no way, shape, or form concerned about stock.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be sad if it was if there was a short supply. We haven't seen any indication that that'll be the case. All we can do is cross our fingers and hope that there's cards for everybody when the game comes out. Yeah. I don't know. There's not. Yeah. I feel like there's not a whole lot you can even say, right? Because we just don't have much information, you know. So I think we just gotta wait and see.
I'll answer the last part because I think this perhaps might be the most important part of the question anyway, which is how do you keep up excitement and momentum? So let's just say the doomsday scenario happens and we just are struggling to get a hold of product. I would say for me personally, I would be doing my best to get a hold of something, even if it's just the starter decks. And the way that you keep up excitement and momentum is you just sleeve up your starter decks and you teach as many people in the meantime, right? The best way to keep hype and excitement is to keep engaged and to spread the word and do your best to maintain interest until product is available. There's not much else you really can do. And there is obviously a window of opportunity there before people's interest will either wane or, you know, they'll move on to the next big thing or whatever the case may be. But that's what I would do in that scenario, is just try to continue to engage in folks and spread the joy that's going to be Star Wars Unlimited.
Yeah, I mean, I know in the past with other games too, I've known LGSs that, you know, and people can have their opinions on this practice, but, you know, when there was a game that had like incredible short supply, that there was a community in that store that wanted to play, they would like allow people to print and play decks to play on like their local nights and things like that until product came in, you know? So they were saying, you know what, like, we're going to get product at some point. We know you're going to buy it at some point. So, we're not giving away pricing, obviously, with this, but come and print and play and, like, at least play in the shop. And, like, we'll build that community. And then once the cards are available, then people can, get those. So I know that's something other people have been doing. Obviously, I'm sure people have strong opinions on that in some ways. But if there's enough interest, if the game is good enough, people will find a way to keep playing and keep working on it. But like I said, I haven't seen any. I feel like with Lorcana too, there was a lot of evidence that things weren't going great, distribution wise, way before the game came out. And now here we are, like, what, 2 months before the game comes out now? Less than 2 months before the game comes out at this point. And I haven't heard, any scary stories from any shop owners I know or anything like that. So I'm pretty confident that it won't be a concern.
All right, we got about 5-ish minutes left, so we're going to cruise through the next one. This one is from NTQ. Fan of the show, friend of the show, says, are you guys going to stream or have gameplay videos on this channel? Yes. Short answer is yes. It's a little bit difficult from a logistics standpoint because we're all over the place and we have different schedules, but that is something that we have talked about. That is something that we have planned for, and that is something that you will be getting when the game releases. Is you're going to get deck guides, you're going to get gameplay videos. We're going to do our best to sort of diversify our Star Wars U portfolio. Yeah.
Yep. There will be. Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's go to Larry H. Shall we go to Larry H as the last one for the evening?
Sure. Let's do it.
Hit it, Charmer.
All right. So Larry H sent in something, and now people are moving it around.
I didn't touch anything.
Notes, and I can't read it.
Again, it's
oh
my God.
Larry H apparently is super tiny. All right, I'm gonna try to read. Nobody touch it.
Show us your hands, Noah. Stop messing around. Show us your hands. Yeah.
Hands off the keyboard.
All right, here we go. Larry H wrote us an email. Says, "Hey y'all. As you guys know, coming from Flesh and Blood, sometimes there is often only 1 or 2 viable meta decks for your hero," referring to the heroes in that game. "And if you don't play those decks, you stand little chance of winning. Given what we've seen so far, do you think Star Wars Unlimited will allow for more expression or creativity in decks? Bonus question, what's your early take on the most expensive card in each aspect?" Try to just think about the base version of the card, so not, foil, hyperspace, etc. Also screaming at us, top of his lungs, Larry H says, "Wear Wampa Radio merch." We're working on addressing some issues with that.
It's
and then the last part says, "You don't have to read this out loud if you don't want to," and I don't want to, but I'm going to do it anyway. It says, "P.S. I love y'all. Seriously, you don't know how much you guys mean. From Flesh and Pod to Instant Speed Podcast to Nerd Legion." He's referencing our various other works. Says, "Y'all have saved me from dark places many times. Thank you." Well, first of all, thank you. Because if you're listening to all of those and this, then you, sir, are a saint. Holy cow.
Maybe that's causing the dark places.
Right. I wasn't going to say
too much of us. Yeah.
Crossed my mind. Yeah.
But
maybe.
We appreciate
it.
Though.
Bad reviews, then it's the guilt that comes from that.
We appreciate it.
I'm sure they're not.
No, we genuinely appreciate it. And again, like the fact that you guys communicate to us, it means a lot. And I say this at the end of most episodes. I say the fact that you leave us these amazing reviews is incredible because it does throw coal into the furnace and keeps us chugging along. So who wants to take a stab at this one?
So I'll pick the command one. I think that Green Vader card that got revealed, I think he's going to be the most expensive command one because that card is amazing. And it's going to be super strong, and anyone who's playing command is going to want a bunch of them. Maybe not 3 because it costs 7. You could probably get away with 2, but I think that one will be up there for sure.
I'm thinking that the legendary Vigilance event is going to be in high demand because I think people are going to want to try Mill, and I think that is a massive, massive tool for that. So in terms of that, I would probably argue that, but I don't think that I honestly don't think that the events are going to be terribly expensive because I don't think a lot of people are going to be wanting them to sprinkle around a lot of decks, whereas the Vader, you can plop it into any of the two aspects it plays with, and you're going to get value. Much like the Emperor. I think the Emperor is going to probably be a big one too. Anytime you can drop onto the board and sprinkle damage directly the way that you want to divvy it up, I think that's massive. So I'll go with Emperor. I'll go with the other part of the rule of 2.
All right.
So you're going with Emperor for the aggression, I guess.
Yes.
Yep.
I think in Cunning, it's kind of hard because it's going to depend on whether more folks are heroism or villainy. But it's, in my opinion, it's down to either Boba Fett or Millennium Falcon, because I think just depending on which side you're on, whether you're on the villainy or the heroism, both of those cards are outstanding. And they're going to likely be 3-ofs in their respective decks.
That's part of what you have to factor in.
Agree.
Is if it's a 3-of, then you've already immediately tripled the demand of what you need for it in a deck, and then it's the versatility of the card. How many decks can this have value in? So mill cards are not only going to have value in mill, in particularly in mill decks, but I also want to just address the last part, or the first part of the question, which is about 1 or 2 viable meta decks per hero in Flesh and Blood. First of all, the fact that you can have 2 viable meta decks per hero is actually a really good thing. Flesh and Blood, for those who don't know, you have a hero that you represent, and in reality, I mean, there's multiple ways to play them. And I want to just, for those who are Flesh and Blood fans, what I want to say is that I will use the hero Briar. Briar was traditionally played as a hyper-aggressive hero. However, Briar won USA Nationals on a hard control survivability fatigue list, which kind of caught people by surprise. So I think that, like, the thing about it is that when you're talking about having multiple variations of a particular hero, or in this case, a triplicate of different aspects, there's always going to be one that is inherently going to be better than the rest within a particular environment at any snapshot of time, because it's going to exist in a meta. And this is, you want to play, let's say, heroism, cunning, aggression. In this meta, this is what you want to play. So I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for expression within deck building, but you're going to be at the mercy of the ebbs and flows of your local meta, and that's where the expression is going to come in. If there's one thing I've learned about Flesh and Blood, is that without a digital client that is recognized and used as like a ladder system, metas are exceptionally regionally developed. So the meta I play in like Eastern Canada is going to be different than the meta I play in like in Texas, is going to be different than what is played in Spain, which is different than what's played in Australia. That is a fact, and it's not a bug, it's a feature. It's a great part of the game, and I hope that Star Wars U becomes that. I want to see regional metas, because when the Galactic Championship happens, it is absolute bedlam, and it's amazing.
I want to add real quick my 2 cents on that, where I think the way that your deck is constructed, the choices around aspects, makes for a lot of different ways to build the same leader. You could take very different approaches to control. You could take very different approaches to aggression, mid-range, depending on if I want to go cunning with this, or I want to go aggression with this. And there's going to be like packages that people kind of determine is the decent one to include with this and that. So I think the really interesting thing is going to be seeing, all right, people say this hero is strong. How do we build out that hero? Which aspect do we pair with it that isn't one of the native aspects on the card? That choice is going to be interesting. And I think we're going to see situations where like top meta deck breakdowns might include the same hero, but like different versions of that hero. So yeah, I just think the way that deck construction works in this game is going to make for a lot of expression and creativity in deck building. So I'm pretty hyped about that. Yeah.
Anything else? Yeah, go for it.
I was just gonna tackle the expression thing. I think is going to be there for this game. I think that this is ultimately going to play very similar to the way the Elder Scrolls Legends did, and given that, I don't see, or at least I don't foresee anything being absolutely like bonkers, head and shoulders above everything else broken. And if it is, then I just have faith that Fantasy Flight will address it. In Elder Scrolls Legends, just again, because of the nature of the game and so forth, it was very rare that we had any one deck that was just insane. There are some exceptions, just like with any card game. Elder Scrolls Legends, there was the Nixox combo, which if you're not familiar, you can check out a YouTube video I made from like 5 years ago where I spend 40 minutes explaining the basics of the deck. It was just insane. And then obviously, like towards the end of the game, when things started to not make it through as much testing and whatever, there was some stuff that slipped through. But overall, that game was pretty well balanced. And I think it's in part because of the core game mechanics, attackers choosing targets, separate lanes, so that nobody gets steamrolled in one direction or the other. And this game has a lot of those qualities, and the fact that it is a back and forth action system as opposed to my turn and then your turn, I think it's only going to help. I think there will be strong decks, but I really don't think that we're going to get to a point for at least a while where the meta is just like all one deck.
Mm-hmm.
Fair. All right, friends. Well, there you go. That is the mailbag. If you want to send us a question, you can do so wamparadiopodcast@gmail.com or at Wampa Radio on Twitter. You can contact me at WatchFlake, at GGDOA, or at ThatCharm3R. We're also on Discord if you want to poke at us. We'd love to hear from you. Again, friends, please, if you haven't already, we've got hundreds of views and such and listens on all of our different platforms, which we're so grateful for. Slam a follow, a subscription on YouTube or whatever audio platform. And if you've done it on one, please go do it on the other. Again, it goes so far for us. It costs you nothing, but it does immense amounts of help for us. So thank you to those who have, dropping those 5-star reviews and everything. Gentlemen, we got some stuff that we got to take care of over the next few weeks, but it is big news for Wampa Radio down the pipe. We'll keep you all posted as it comes along, but we love you, and we mean it. Charmer, wisdom time.
May the Force be with you.